The NFL season is officially in the books with the Super Bowl now over. It is truly off-season time for the NFL. If you are excited, like today's video for me before we break down my latest 2025 NFL mock draft. Compared to last year, there's a lot more uncertainty about who's going to go number one, who's going to go in the top half of the first round. For now, I'll put Cam Ward at number one overall to the Tennessee Titans. They need a quarterback pretty badly. Cam Ward is maybe going to end up being the consensus number one. That's still up for debate, I should say, as well. I was this close to doing a trade as well, but we'll do that on a future video instead. Number two, Abdul out of Penn State to the Browns. This made sense even before Myles Garrett requested a trade. We'll see if Garrett gets dealt or not, but you can argue that Abdul is the best player in this year's class. The Giants are desperate for a QB. I would be very surprised if they did not exit the draft, maybe they go in free agency somehow. But if they don't have a QB going to the draft, they will get one. They are a prime trade-up candidate as well. I'll give them Shedeur Sanders here at number 3 overall. Very different play styles compared to Cam Ward. There are concerns with both of those players, but I'd be pretty surprised if those guys didn't go in the top 10 because of the quarterback need in this year's class. At number 4, then, Patriots probably enjoy this outcome. They get to take Travis Hunter, who many could also argue is the best player in this year's NFL draft. Given Mike Vrabel's occasional dabbling on offense, he might have a decent plan for Travis Hunter. I think could be a number 1 receiver or a number 1 corner in the NFL. Maybe not both full-time, but I'd let him play both ways in the NFL. A lot of good debates can be had about who's going to go number 1 in the upcoming NFL draft. It's not set in stone. The Titans don't even have the pick when it's all said and done. Get your predictions in for me right now at the pinned comment of today's video. Who is the top pick in this year's class? CW for Cam Ward, AC for Abdul Carter, SS for Shedeur Sanders, TH for Travis Hunter. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Number 5 is Mason Graham, the Michigan defensive lineman. With Trent Baalke out, the Jags can take Michigan players again. Good for them. Graham, I think, is also probably going to be a pretty consensus top 5 player in this year's class. With the quarterbacks gone, we'll pretend the Raiders signed Sam Darnold or something in free agency to get their quarterback room figured out. I'll give them McMillan. Thought about Ashton Jeanty, by the way, as well. Maybe Chip Kelly can wait and get one of the Ohio State guys on day 2. McMillan gives them a big body on the outside, number 1 receiver, which they don't truly have right now. The Jets are about to enter a rebuilding phase. They're a prime quarterback candidate team as well. I think taking the best player on the board, they were heavily linked to Brock Bowers last year. Now they can get Tyler Warren out of Penn State in this class. Number 8, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit more controversial because there's like 5, 6 guys that you will see draft experts have as their number 2 edge. So where that number 2 edge goes, in this case I'll give Jalon Walker out of Georgia to Carolina. I think it's actually a pretty good fit for what they want to do on defense. That could be as high as in the top 10, or it could be like barely in the top 20. And those range of outcomes, I think, will lead to a very divisive and non-consensus featured NFL draft. Number 9, Michigan's Will Johnson to the Saints. You trade Marshawn Lattimore. You're also probably going to, if they're doing it right, enter a rebuilding phase. Take the young corner, keep building the defense a little bit. Number 10, Will Campbell, the offensive lineman at LSU to Chicago. Played left tackle for the Tigers. I might want to try him on the inside. There's some arm length concerns, and I think his football IQ could also make him a dynamite center. This is the first offensive lineman taken. And again, you can argue for 4 guys as the best offensive lineman in this class. So 1 will probably go top 10. 1 might fall out of the top 20. Big range of outcomes in this year's class. Niners, who I think would be a great fit for Will Campbell, by the way, with what they want to do. I'll give him Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Medical's got to be checked out here. If the medical checks out, he could be the first offensive lineman taken. He was great in a small sample size at middle of this year for Ohio State. Today's show is made possible by Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. The pre-alcohol makes an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Remember to drink the probiotic before drinking alcohol. Drink responsibly and get a good night's sleep to feel your best tomorrow. I am not the same young guy I was in my prime. I cannot hang the way I used to. That's why ZBiotics helps make a big difference the day after for me. Go to zbiotics.com/chatsports or scan the QR code on screen right now to get 15% off your first order when you use code chatsports at checkout. You can also get a subscription using the code so you can stay prepared no matter the time or the occasion. ZBiotics has 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Head to zbiotics.com/chatsports and use code chatsports at checkout for 15% off. Thank you to ZBiotics for sponsoring this episode and our good times. Number 12, Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back to the Dallas Cowboys here. This is a very popular mock draft pick for understandable reasons. Does maybe need Dallas to invest actually for once in free agency to make some fans feel better about it. Dolphins at 13. I think Kelvin can play tackle. I actually think he's a better fit at tackle than he is at guard. But why not put him in there at guard and upgrade and get some actual power on the interior of the offensive line that you don't really have? That guard, those interior linemen for Miami are very underpowered. And I think the Sark offense, the Mike McDaniel offense, it's not the same, but a lot of similar characteristics. Malaki Starks to the Colts here at number 14. He didn't have as good of a year. I still think the stuff we've seen previously and the way I think he'll test means he'll go in round 1. Number 15, Mike Green out of Marshall. This has been a massive riser, not just in the pre-draft process, but throughout the year of college football. And everyone knows the Falcons need pass rush help. James Pearce out of Tennessee. I don't know if he's going to be a good enough run defender early on in his career to be more than a situational pass rusher, but I think Arizona could use a situational pass rusher, so it makes sense to me. Heavy run on edges here. Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, who has rare size and traits and didn't produce the way that you need him to at the collegiate level. Make him a big boom or bust prospect. I think he'll be a good run defender early on, which would make him a good replacement for Sam Hubbard, and hope the pass rush develops around the time Henderson's career ends up being over in Cincinnati. Much like that offensive line conversation, pick your second best edge. They could go in the top 10 or fall to the top 20 because there's like 5 or 6 guys that fit that mold. So who do you think? Assuming Abdul Carter's number 1, you can clarify somebody else if so. Who is the second best pass rusher from the outside in this class? Number 18, Armand Membu out of Missouri. I think he's a tackle. Some people are going to view him as guards. Very common in this class. But again, there's not a lot of consensus this year. I would put him on the right side for Seattle. I can move on from the Abe Lewis experiment. I actually like this fit a lot if he makes it to 18. Micah Williams out of Georgia. This is a lot of the Trayvon Walker talk for both Stewart and Williams. Great athletes, great size. Production simply is not there, but I think would be a good fit for what the Bucs want to do on defense. Sean Payton's made comments about trying to find a joker this year that tight end that can catch and block or a back who can do that. I think Colston Loveland fits that pretty well. He is almost a slot receiver at tight end for Michigan. He's not the stereotypical blocker for Michigan at tight end, but he can move. He can make plays downfield. I think that's a good fit for Sean Payton. Let's get the Steelers a receiver because that's a unique mock draft pick, right? Luther Burden out of Missouri. It makes sense though, right? Yak generator. I like him a lot. He'll be a top 15 player for me in this year's class probably. Let's go with the surprise receiver here, number 22. How about Matthew Golden over Emeka Egbuka, who we will get to later on in today's show. I think Golden's more of an outside receiver. I think the Chargers need that outside receiver more than they need someone like Egbuka, although the blocking for both guys really could be appealing to Jim Harbaugh. One of my favorite guys this year, Jahdae Barron out of Texas. I have a first-round grade on him. He might actually crack my top 10 once I get around to stacking everything. I think he's probably better in more zone schemes and can maybe do some nickel stuff for you. I think he's just an impact football player. More outside corner than Brian Branch was for his first year with Detroit, but I get kind of some similar vibes. This is one of my guys in the NFL draft. Who is your favorite player? Not necessarily best, but favorite player in the 2025 NFL draft? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. If Kenneth Grant makes it to pick 24, I would not be surprised if the Vikings jump all over him. I do think he will be very impressive testing-wise at this NFL Combine. Could also be true for Walter Nolan, pick number 25 here to the Houston Texans. Has not yet hit his ceiling. I would love to see this Houston defense get a dynamic 3 technique. Offensive line's a concern, I know. I think they can invest in free agency / on day 2. With Cooper Kupp almost assuredly gone out of LA, I actually do think receivers now a need for LA. And I think Emeka Egbuka and his blocking willingness and his inside-outside game, we played a lot of slot this past year, fits very well for what Sean McVay would like to do. The Ravens get a linebacker, Jihad Campbell. I almost went safety. We'll get to the safety here in a little bit. But I think getting somebody to pair with Roquan Smith full-time at linebacker, I don't know if that's going to be Trenton Simpson, frankly, I think is a good idea. And I think he fits well in that Ravens-style defense where you can blitz and cover. Gray Zabel. Would anyone be surprised if the Lions did this? This fits the stereotype of a Dan Campbell pick, right? Offensive lineman, trenches, can play any of the 5 spots along the offensive line. They're getting older at guard. We'll see how much longer Frank Ragnow plays. He could start his career at guard, maybe move to center long-term as well. Now, we will have more NFL draft videos for you right here on the channel. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Number 29, Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. I was disappointed by his play this year. I thought he was better at Purdue. I still think there's good upside as a pass rusher, and I think he's a good run stopper as well. And the Commanders' defense has a lot of free agents, by the way, so don't sleep on that spot, especially at end where Dante Fowler is a free agent. Nikamon Wari out of South Carolina, very gifted athlete, incredible size-speed combination that will probably test super well. And if you weren't talking about him in round 1, you will be after the NFL Combine. Plus, safety is a need for Buffalo. Chiefs at number 31 overall. How about Derek Harmon? I love Chris Jones. I think adding another piece on the interior, though, would be a nice boost for the Chiefs' defense. And the Eagles, number 32 overall. Congrats. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, by the way. Josh Connerly out of Oregon. We'll see how much longer Lane Johnson wants to play. I think giving Connerly some time to develop as a former 5-star, highly athletic upside player at a premium spot the Eagles love to draft makes sense. So you can grade this mock draft for me in the comment section of today's show. I don't mind if you guys are mean. I'll just take it as constructive criticism. Let me know in the comments, A, B, C, D, or F. One note before we go, I refuse to buy the Jackson Dart height, so I will not put him in round 1. Amarian Hampton or Caleb Johnson could be a second back that sneaks into the first round. Donovan Jackson and Tyler Booker as interior offensive linemen could certainly go early, maybe even over a Gray Zabel, for example. Jack Sawyer, I think, is just a second-round player, but there's not going to be a ton of first-round grades. He could sneak in round 1. And medical depending, Siobhan Revelle could easily end up being a first-round pick as well.